So welcome back, and here we are now into module 5 of Secret Sales Sniper, where we're going to talk about closing, and I mean closing the right way. Closing has to happen. Closing is a part of a sales process. You can't just go and have nice conversations with people and expect something to happen. The top gun salespeople are people that know when is the point, as you said, to flip from a farmer to a hunter, and when to turn on that snipe mode to really get this closed down, to hone in on that target and actually shake hands, get a contract signed, get a credit card payment, get the job done. And the reason I say that is because let's look at what a close really is. A close is where the magic happens. There's no value in selling until a close happens, because then something can move forward to take action. But it's where you put that handshake in. It's where you commit to someone and they commit to you that you're going to do this. It's where you get paid. It's where they get the value. It's where they get the benefit. Closes have to happen. It's not just having a conversation till you come to an agreement. It's because that still shows awareness that you're trying to close. If you're just having a conversation and waiting for them to say yes, you could be going round in circles for a very, very long time. And as I said in sales earlier in this course, time is the most valuable resource that you've got, that you cannot waste. You have to know when to flip to closing mode to get that payment, to get that contract, to get that handshake, because that's when you get paid as a salesperson. That's when you personally benefit. But remember, you're in sales to help people. You should also feel good at that point of close, because you know that that's when this person that you're dealing with is going to start getting help. The close is where it happens. The close is the most important part. And if you can't close, you quite simply will not be able to succeed in sales. Now, you've got to be prepared for the close to happen. You've got to be ready. And why I say this is I see so many people get a sale, it's primed to be closed, but then they carry on talking, and they talk so much that they talk themselves out of a sale. You have to be prepared that if a customer in the middle of it, and you know you've still got 20 minutes of pitching to do, suddenly turns around and says, right, let's do this, move to the close. Don't keep talking and tell them more. If they're telling you they're ready, be ready. Make sure you've got the contract to hand. Make sure you know what you need to do next to make it happen. You've got to be prepared to make that close happen. And that means dropping your agenda. It's going with what the customer wants. You've got to be able to make that happen. You've got to know when to switch modes. So how do you do that? How do you know when the right time to switch modes is? Well, for me, I always go on a scale of 1 to 10. And it's quite simple. If I'm dealing with someone and we're in a 1, 2, 3, they're not going to buy. So they're a ditch. I'm not going to do anything with them. I'm going to get rid of them because they're wasting my time. If I've got a 4, 5, 6, 7, that's someone I'm investing my time in, because they're showing me interest, I've qualified them, I believe they're a good deal, but they're not ready yet, and you know that they're not ready. However, as you start moving to an 8, 9 or a 10, you're probably going to be able to close it. And if they're a 10, it's going to be an easier close. If it's an 8, it might be a trickier close. But for you, it's being aware that that you're ready to move to the closing mode. You're managing your time correctly, and you want to make sure that when you're ready to go in for the kill, that's when you're doing it. So use a scale such as this in your own head. When they get to an 8, it's time to move to a close. If you keep talking, get them up to a 10 and you're not quite sure, do that. But don't try and close if it's a 1, 2, or 3. Don't waste your time on it. If it's a 4, 5, 6, 7, you haven't done your job properly yet. So you need to keep talking. You need to ask more questions. You need to build more commitment. You need to add more value. Because let's be clear, magic does not win deals. I could teach you hundreds of lines to close a deal, but they're not some magic bullet that's suddenly going to make someone go from not interested to interested. The closing lines are there to help you actually get the deal over the line. You've got to make sure you've done everything properly, as we've discussed in the other modules so far, to get to the point of closing. Let's be clear, it doesn't matter how many magic lines that you've learned, you've got to understand why they work. You've got to understand the psychology behind them. So, how do you do that? Well, when you're talking to someone, how clear is it to you? Why is this prospect going to become a buyer? And that's the question you should be asking in your head. What have they told you that meant this doing business with you is the best decision they can make? If you don't know the answer to that while you're talking to them, you're not an 8 yet. If you cannot answer that question during any point in your negotiation, you're not ready to move to the close, because you should be crystal clear when you're ready. And when you are ready, how do you move to the close? Well, it's quite simple. You just say, this sounds like a great fit for you. And it gives signals to them that, hey, look, we're looking good here. I think we've got a deal here. And you're very subtly, politely putting that out to them. And when you say that, you can gauge, where are they? Because if they're saying yes and they're in agreement with you, it's time to move to the close. If they're saying no and they're throwing more objections out, then you're not ready to move to the close. So just practice that line. This sounds like a great fit for you. Shut up and see what they say. And if they say yes and they're in commitment with you, great, we go back to this building this basic commitment close, which I've showed you before. Do a quick clarification. This sounds like a great fit for you because it's going to give you this result, and it's going to eliminate problem ABC for you, and it's going to give you XYZ. And during that, they should be saying yes, yes, yes. And you've done a little test close. You've told them it's a good fit. You've asked for a bit more commitment and a clarification, and they've agreed the whole way through for you. They're saying yes. And if I say, keep telling you, when people say yes, they're going to remain consistent to what they're committing to. So, you're ready to move to the close, and closing is as simple as this sentence. That's great. What I need you to do next is. That's great. What I need you to do next is go and get your credit card. Sign here, here, and here. Sit down on this date and make sure we do this. You're leading them to where you need them to go. And you're doing it by making it easy. Because I said, humans are lazy. Humans like to be told what to do. They're good at following instructions. And if you've done everything correctly in their agreement, you know it's right for them, then lead them to where they need to go. Make it easy for them. Don't put up barriers to doing business with you. Make it as swift and easy as possible with simple instructions for them to follow of how to close the deal to do business with you. It's really important you get a decision. The worst thing you can have is people sitting on the fence, because people sitting on the fence, they're just going to keep going, not sure, and it's a time waste for you. What you need to do at this point is stay strong and get them off the fence, and whether that's a yes or a no. But because even if it's a no, it might just be a no right now, but it can come back to you when they realise they put the phone down, they go, actually that was pretty good what we discussed, and they come back to you and say let's do a deal. You've still closed it. They may give you a no and it's a pretty red flag, clear reason why they're not buying from you, but you want to get that yes. The worst thing you can have is someone sitting on the fence because you can't explain it to anyone. It's just, why is there no decision? And let's just look at some follow-up stats. Right at the bottom there, 80% of sales are made on the 5th to 12th contact. Well, you've got to have been doing that through the whole process. But at the top, 48% of salespeople never follow up with a prospect. So it shows you there's a massive discrepancy here, that if you're not prepared to follow up and keep getting a decision, you're never going to get a deal, because if 80% of the sales are made on the 5th to 12th contact. But 25% of people stop at the second contact. 12% of salespeople stop at the third contact. Only 10% of them make more than 3. But you can see where the money is made. So you've got to get really good at getting them off the fence and making decisions, because you don't want to be stuck in follow-up hell, but you also realise you've got to do the follow-up. You've got to make sure that happens. And every time you go for a close, that is a follow-up. Now, what do you do if you're accused of hard selling? And I've had this. Well, I learn a very simple line. Because I'm never aggressive when I'm selling, I'm always very polite and open. If someone accuses me of hard selling, I say with a little bit of a cheeky smile on my face, I just say, hey look, come on, don't confuse my passion and excitement for this working for you as a hard sell. And normally if you say that in the right way, it just takes the sting out of it, and you drop back a little bit if they think you're hard selling. But again, it's having a line prepared when closing of how to get out of something if it starts going down the wrong path. You know that they're committed to you. Okay, maybe you've just amped it up too much and they didn't like it. That doesn't mean they don't want to buy, they just didn't appreciate you getting in their face as much as you did. So you can be prepared to use this line just to know when to pull back and say, don't confuse my passion and excitement for this working for you. I don't want you to think this is hard selling. Common reasons do come up of when closing isn't going to happen. So let's have a look at what are those common reasons, and I don't think you're going to be surprised here. Common reasons why deals don't happen and things don't get closed It's normally down to you as the salesperson. It's your job. You're being paid to be a professional, not an amateur. So what are the reasons why deals don't get closed? There was a lack of belief somewhere up front from you, where you weren't sold on it yourself. You weren't sold on yourself. You weren't sold on the product. You weren't sold on the company. And that came through. You didn't qualify, so you've gone through and you pitched someone who you shouldn't have pitched in the first place. When you pitched, you didn't pitch correctly. You didn't make it real. You just showed up and threw up at them. Or you didn't ask for the order. Quite simply, these are the main reasons when deals don't happen. It's all down to you being a professional or acting like an amateur. It's you. And you've got to take responsibility for that. You are being paid to be a salesperson, then you are a sales professional. You're not an amateur, so you've got to act like one. But sometimes objections do come up. Maybe you didn't quite do it properly. Maybe they did withhold some information from you. So the worst place to get an objection is right at the end when you're so close. But you've got to learn how to handle an objection at this point, because you've got to remember you are in a closing scenario. You're not in a pitching scenario. You're in a closing scenario. So you've got to brace yourself and understand how to handle these objections when they come up at this point. So whenever you get an objection, you don't want to turn it into an argument. So you've got to agree without agreeing with them. So you've got to do something like, yeah, I see. So you're not arguing with them, you're not disagreeing with them. They think you're agreeing with them, but you're not really doing anything. What you then do is clarify back to them that you completely get what they're saying. As we said, it's one of those key questions to do with irrational behaviour. They need to understand that you get them and their problems. Now, before you go and spout off the answer, you need to put the brakes on and then say to them, look, I get that, but before I answer that, is there anything else that could stop this deal going ahead? At this point, get all the objections out on the table, because you don't want to keep going around in circles with objection after objection. You need to say, look, we had commitment here, this was all sounding good. You're now saying this could be a potential problem here. Is there any other things that could be a problem that I need to be aware of so we can deal with this now? If they say no, you're ready to proceed to the next step. Once they've said everything they're going to say, concisely answer the objection. This is the point where you say it concisely. You're not trying to go into another discussion at this point. You're trying to give them a factual based short answer to what they're saying, stopping them. And once you've given that answer, you then ask for the order again. You move straight back to the close because you are in a closing cycle. And once you've asked for the order again, shut up, zip it. It's their turn to talk. Because I've said before, the person who speaks first at these points is the person that will lose in that negotiation. And I don't mean lose in a bad way, I just mean the person who speaks first is the person that's going to take the action. So there you have it, a 6-step process of how you can close a deal still if an objection comes up. But as I said, you are a sales professional. You've got to put in the right behaviour, you've got to put in the right effort up front to be prepared for these, so you can actually deal with objections yourself, where you can inoculate them before they come up. You can actually deal with these common objections in your pitch, so they can't come up when you're trying to close. You're dealing with them up front. For example, if they've got a pricing question, you could say up front, they say, look, how much is this going to cost me? And you could say, look, I don't want to discuss price yet because we need to go through and understand some variables. They may go, yeah, but I need to know a ballpark. So you could say during your pitch, go, look, if you took the full bells and whistles solution, I'm going to tell you this could cost you $5,000. But hey, you're not going to pay that. You could pay $2,500, you could pay $2,000. And what you're doing there is you're setting this up psychologically. You're basically telling them it's going to cost them $2,000. But what you're saying is, look, it could cost you $5,000. It could cost you $2,500, which is a little bit more, but I think I could probably do this for you for $2,000. But you're not getting into the discussions about it because you're opening back to the pitch, but you're giving them enough information just to take the sting out of it, where they can start imagining the world, okay, if I've got to spend $2,000, what do I need to see here when I'm pitching? So you're kind of dealing with that price objection up front. And you can do this with any objection. Is if you know you're particularly weak against a certain competitor, how do you put that into your pitch and put something in that makes it okay? So it's hard for them if they accepted it in the pitch to then suddenly bring it up as a bigger issue again. At the end of the day, there's only 3 real objections out there. It's price, they're just not happy with the price against value. Time, it's simply the wrong time for them, or it's money, they simply cannot pay for it right now. Now, you should have dealt with most of that in the qualifying, but if you know things are coming up around that, how do you make sure that they're genuine objections that you can overcome, that they're not just being thrown out there to try and stall the deal or block it? And you do that by creating a sales playbook for objections. Every time you don't get a deal, every time something comes up that's stalling, you make a note of it and you go discuss it with your team, your manager, your colleagues, and you document it and you come up with the answers for it. Now, ideally, the answer is to get it into your pitch, so you're dealing with it up front, but sometimes these things will come up during a close. What's the answer? How do you deal with it? How do you get it moved back to a close? At the end of the day, you need to be building your closing sales toolkit. And that's where these lines come in, of understanding what the type of things you can keep a conversation going with, how to turn an objection back into a close. You want to have more ways of getting them to say yes than they have of saying no. That if they say A to you, you say B. If they say C, you say D. If they say E, you say F, and so on and so on. That you're prepared, you're a professional, you've got something there that you can just keep going back and back and back at them until they end up saying yes to you, because you're just shooting down any argument they've got, because this is amazing value for them. And if you don't agree this is the right deal for them, don't sell it to them. Tell them that. Say, hey, this isn't the right thing for you. I've done that. I've sat in front of people. I could see they were going to be a paying customer. And I just said, you know what, I don't think this is the right solution for you. And I got up and prepared to leave. They actually changed towards me at that point and started listening to what I was saying, because they were just being annoying in my eyes. That the moment I actually challenged them and threatened to walk away, they actually wanted to do business with me. So we've gone through how to do a basic commitment close, how to handle objections, what you should be doing with objections, and how you should be investing in yourself to grow your closing toolkit. We're going to do exercise 5 now, where it's about mastering closing. So the first step is, I want you to list as many reasons as possible as to why a prospect will buy from you. The more confidence you have up front, the more you're opening your own neural pathways, the more likely your belief's going to be there, it's going to come through. Understand the process to take a prospect to a buyer once they're committed. Know when to flip the switch and when to know to go from being a farmer to a hunter and become a sniper. I want you to list all the common objections you receive when you're trying to close a deal and start a playbook of scripted responses. Don't wait for your manager. Go do it with your team. Sit down, put things on the table and have it out with each other of how to discuss it. How can you inject it into your pitch to stop it coming up at the point of the close? So there we go, point 4. Plan how to cover these common objections in your pitch up front. So 4 very powerful steps there, and as usual I want you to share any light bulb moments in the comments below. Tell me how you're getting on, tell me what's worked for you, tell me where you're stuck, and I'll help you. And that's it for module 5. I'll see you in module 6 real soon.